Hey Exercise Confidence followers, thank you so much for tuning into episode 3. Today we are going to be talking with Rick Cozart. Rick has a very diverse background. He is originally from Texas but now lives in California. He served in the United States Marine Corps and he has also taught English abroad in both Europe and Asia. Rick is currently getting his master's in history at California State University, Long Beach, and he is an avid chess player. So we're going to be talking about how all of these things come together to make him the man that he is, and how he has chosen to exercise confidence in his life to help with his personal self-growth and to also take advantage of all the opportunities that life has presented him. So without further ado, here is episode 3 of Exercise Confidence. Hey there listeners, thank you so much for tuning in again today to episode 3 of Exercise Confidence. Today my guest is Rick Cozart. Rick, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you very much.
All right, so as I've been starting these off, I'm going to go ahead and ask you the same wonderful question that I've been starting with. Please tell me something interesting about yourself in 20 seconds and go.
20 seconds, okay. Well, to cover the bases, I served in the Marine Corps for a little bit, had a great time. I've done a little bit of teaching abroad, both in Europe and Asia. And right now I'm currently just pursuing a master's degree in history. So that's kind of the short biography of me.
Very nice. All right. And I think that was under 20 seconds. A lot of the guests have actually been doing that, so I'm quite proud of y'all. Threw in that y'all for you because I know you're from Texas.
Right.
Okay. So speaking of Texas, I have only ever grown up in one place my entire life. What about you?
I've lived in a couple different spots, actually.
Okay. Tell me what life was like for you growing up. What was it like with your family? What was the dynamic there?
Right. So growing up, I actually grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas. My father is a preacher and my mother is a nurse. So having a preacher as a father is a really interesting thing in that unlike a lot of other people, pastors and preachers have a lot of scrutiny put on them by their congregation, and that actually goes and trails down to how their families behave as well. So I was actually talking about this with a friend recently, that there was a lot of scrutiny put on my family just by people watching us and watching our behavior. So that kind of added a little bit of extra stress growing up. We felt like we had to be perfect because our father, his job depended on how we behaved, which again, it kind of adds another level of stress that you have to deal with growing up. But then he actually transitioned out of preaching when we were about 8 or 9. And we moved to Texas, where I feel like I really grew up. So early on in Arkansas, I don't really have a ton of, information about that. But moving to Houston was a totally different dynamic. My family really came into our own, and myself, I felt like I did a lot of growing, just kind of going through adolescence and your teenage years. And then I went to college out in Texas A&M in College Station.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and spent some time out in College Station as well. So I've lived in a couple different spots, and I eventually moved out to California. And growing up in different places is really interesting because you get to see kind of the different cultures that arise, and not only within your own state, but within your own city, right? So in Texas, growing up, everybody was really conservative and things like that. But going to college, it was a bit more open and liberal. So, and then moving to California is completely different. So, yeah, there's just a lot of different things going on with growing up in different places. And I think that everybody should give it a shot for sure.
Yeah, I think a few things that I've heard from a couple guests is experiencing new places and how that really affects them. So a couple things that you said in there were super interesting. Let's take it back to kind of that dynamic that was placed upon your family when your father was in, that spotlight as a preacher.
Right.
And how that affected, you said, your demeanor. Did you feel like that pressure, that stress affected your confidence in either a negative or positive way?
Well, one thing that it did that's actually kind of interesting, an unintended consequence was because my family was in the spotlight and we were in a situation where a lot of eyes were on us. Me, my 2 older sisters, and my younger brother, there's 4 of us. A lot of times we would stick together as a pack. And it was just kind of anytime we would go to a church or like a new church or anything like that, we would always be really close together and kind of like watching each other's backs and making sure that we were doing everything right. One of the problems with that is that when you are so reliant on your siblings and things like that, you don't necessarily need to look elsewhere or outside of that circle in order to find new people. So when we would go to a new church or we would do something like that, a lot of times because we're sticking in a pack, we wouldn't really interact with a lot of other people. So it kind of screwed us up a little bit socially. And I think we all are very honest about that in my family, that we're not necessarily the best at like meeting a ton of new people and things like that, just because we always had that support system built into everywhere that we would go.
Right.
So it actually kind of messed up my confidence, especially growing up, because I felt like I wasn't that great at socializing and meeting new people. And it just kind of wore on me for a while. So it was actually kind of detrimental.
No, and that's, I appreciate you being so candid about it, because that's what we're here to do. We're sharing the good, bad, and ugly of how we grow and how we become more confident. So also the moving, how does that affect somebody, especially you moved at a young age and then moving at an older age for college. How was that for you? Like getting out of either your, like you said, small conservative town and going to a bigger place that was more open and maybe a lot of different walks of life that you encountered. And especially coming from, like you're saying, a small circle where you're very reliant on your siblings, now branching out in this bigger place. How was that for you?
It was actually really, in the beginning, it was really tough. And then as you kind of gain more life experience and you become more confident, more kind of open, it becomes easier. I find when we first moved, when I was 8 years old, my mom always tells me that when they told us that we were moving, we were at a fast food restaurant, and I just busted out into tears and cried all over my fries. So it was
crying your fries.
Yeah, it was rough. It was rough.
Oh.
So so little Ricky was so upset. And then when I moved for college, I remember this is going to sound so bad. I was so bad socially, or I felt I was so bad, that the week before I moved to college, I was walking through a Target and I saw a Pez dispenser. And I bought it because I thought it would be a good conversation starter. And I'm 18, 19 years old, and I'm buying a Pez dispenser to make conversation. Like, oh, look at my Pez dispenser. Do you want to be my friend? So that should just kind of give you a little window into where I was at. Yeah, it was rough. But then after that, like going through college, I met some new people. I was still really in my own head. But then when I moved to California for the Marine Corps, I think that's when everything really started to change. And, being put in a situation like going to boot camp or something like that, you really don't have a choice, right? And life gets really simple when you don't have a choice. You either do it or you don't. You can't be in your own head. You can't be sitting there like, can I talk to this person? Can I do this? Can I do that? Because you don't have a choice. Like, you have to talk to them in order to complete what your object is. Right. So then after I got a little bit of like a different perspective and kind of got out of my own head, like moving to going to university out here and meeting new people now is definitely a lot easier than it was previously. But again, like my time in the Marine Corps, I met so many people that were completely different from me that I think it really gave me a good social tool belt to be able to handle myself anywhere.
Okay, so timeline-wise, you did college before the Marines?
Yes.
Okay. Now, it's usually backwards, right? People kind of join the military out of high school, and then if there's, some kind of stipend or GI Bill, they use that for college after, don't they?
Right.
Okay. Why was your timeline the way that it was?
So, growing up, I study history and things like that. I've always been fascinated in history and in war and the military and things like that. So in 2008, I graduated from high school in 2008. That spring, I was looking to do something. I was feeling kind of directionless. So I went and some Army recruiter got my name and started talking me up, saying like, the Army would be great. Now in 2009 is when things popped off in Afghanistan really bad again. and at the time we kind of knew that things were starting to ramp up. So I wanted to be a part of that. And it's actually crazy how much of this kind of ties into my own self-worth. I felt like I hadn't accomplished anything going out of high school. So I wanted to join the military in order to really like earn my place in the world. I remember my parents sat me down at the kitchen table and were like, you really should have joined the military. This is... And not like, I mean, my grandfather was in the military, so it wasn't anything like bad. It was just like, we don't really want to see you go to Afghanistan right now. That's not really a priority of ours.
Of course.
But they're like, but go to college. Once you're done with college, if you still want to do it, I think that's probably, or they're like, I think that's probably a better time to do it. You know, you'll be more confident in yourself. You'll kind of know where you are in the world, and then you can make that decision. So my senior year of college, I had been in a relationship for 3 years, and the January before I graduated, it all kind of fell apart, and that just tanked me. Just emotionally, it was not a good time. I just felt really, really bad about myself. So the spring break of that senior year, I went to a Marine Corps recruiting station, and I was like, hey, what can you guys hook me up with? And they're like, you know what? You have a college degree. You can pretty much do whatever you want. So actually, me joining the military kind of came out of just really low confidence and just feeling so bad about myself and just being at rock bottom. And it turned out to be the best decision of my life, like by far. So, but that's why I went in after college, because I wanted to go in originally, and my parents just talked me out of it. And then after college, I was like, I've got nothing to lose. So yeah, I just kind of bit the bullet and went for it.
All right. So you mentioned that an Army recruiter contacted you first, but you went into the Marines.
Right.
Any specific reason for that?
The Marines are the best. Everyone knows that.
I have to agree, and nobody can get upset with me because my father was also in the Marines. So I agree. I'm always like, yeah, Marines are the best. So
yeah,
I mean, makes sense.
The thing is, they have a reputation, right? And they're very good at their job, which is to go in and get stuff done.
Right.
You know, now how they do that is up for debate, but they're really good at what they do. And one of the biggest things that drew me to the Marine Corps was that reputation, right? They are known as being the best. They are known as, being, kind of alpha, really out there, really masculine, all these kinds of different things. And confident, right? And that was something that I was completely missing in my life. We already talked about how, like, younger I wasn't great socially. That didn't get any better in college. I had some, I was a little bit better, but in the end, I didn't feel like I was really accomplishing anything. So seeing kind of that Marine Corps veneer of them just being like elite people, I wanted to be a part of that. So I didn't want to settle for the Army or the Navy or the Air Force or anything like that, even though career-wise it probably would have been better. I wanted to go so that I could prove myself, and that's why I chose them.
So it's really interesting to me that you've expressed that you were at a place in life where the self-confidence and self-esteem was quite low, and you wanted to join the best of the best because that's what you wanted for yourself. But isn't that, like, frightening to just throw yourself into, like, boom, I'm going to go and just join the Marines, who I think are this just echelon of people, and I feel like I'm rock bottom?
Yeah. In that case, I kind of mentioned earlier, and this is something I've kind of lived by, life is pretty simple when you don't have a choice. If you leave it to me, I am not ambitious, really, as a person. I think one of my biggest flaws, which a lot of people would kind of see this as a strength, but I'm always content. So regardless of if I'm in a good place, if I'm in a bad place, if, I'm making a lot of money, if I'm not making any money at all, I'm always kind of even keeled and I'm always content, right? And it takes a lot for me to get motivated to do a lot of things, which is awful if you're trying to be a better person. Like when you're comfortable, whether it's in a relationship or in school or anything like that, when you're comfortable, that's when you kind of become complacent. Yeah. And that's something that I've kind of had to deal with because I'm always content. So when I was looking at the Marine Corps, at the time I wasn't content, right? I was heartbroken. And I thought, I'm not going to get better on my own. And this is something that I know. Because at the time I was 23. I hadn't gotten better yet, right? I wasn't living the life that I wanted to live. I wasn't making the moves that I wanted to make.
Yeah.
So I had to find an organization, a structure, a method to make myself excel. And that was the Marines, right? Mm-hmm. And it was rough. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. It was awful. And I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. But I mean, sometimes that's what you got to do, right? If you can't get to where you want to be, you have to find people that are going to push you to do that. For me, it was a bunch of bald men and like war heroes. So they're the ones who got me to where I needed to be. But like signing those papers was terrifying.
Oh yeah,
it was
absolutely. Can't imagine.
Yeah, it was swearing your life away is rough, but that's what I needed. So that's what I did.
You talked about how if you couldn't grow on your own, you needed to find a way to do it. So can you give a little more detail about, was there like a defining moment in the Marines that you really saw that flip switch for your confidence or your growth, or do you think it was kind of just the entire time that you served? Like, what would you say?
If I could show you a picture from the day I left for boot camp and the day I got out, I'd look like a completely different person. Mm-hmm. And I can't think of a defining moment when I was like, man, I made it. Mm-hmm. You know, they didn't have that. But what they do have, and a lot of people call it brainwashing, I guess it kind of is, but you go into the Marine Corps with this knowledge of the reputation of we are the best, right? Now, in order to become a Marine, you have to adopt that. You have to internalize that idea that you are the best. Now, the way that they do that is they break you down and get you to rock bottom, and then they build up, right? Now, the great thing about me is I was already at rock bottom, so they just kind of, they just let a little more air out, and I just went a little lower, and then they built you back up, right? Right. They do that physically, mentally. You're in this, like, in boot camp, since I did have a college degree, a lot of the people that were around me were, 18, 19-year-old high school students, right. Just got out of high school, they're young, really impulsive. And a lot of them looked to me for advice because I was the old man, There was maybe one or two people who were older than me in there, like maybe a 25-year-old. But, I was educated. I love helping others. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of these kids would come up and look to me for guidance. And I've never thought of myself as a leader until that point. I was put in a position of responsibility, and I did it well. The instructors, or the drill instructors, whatever you want to call them, they would rely on me to get things done. Mm-hmm. So not only was I kind of looked up to as somebody in the platoon who could get things done, but I was also there to kind of mentor or shepherd these kids. I like to think of it like that, when they were kind of going through a lot of trouble, because it's a very taxing environment. It's awful. So just having people around you that are relying on you makes you kind of step up to the plate, right? You either get it done or you just kind of collapse. And I'm not really one to collapse. So I kind of took on that position of leadership, and that instilled confidence in myself, right? If I can lead these kids, if I can do the things that they're asking me to do, I can do pretty much anything. So it was just the process of kind of figuring out that I do have a lot of the traits needed to be a confident person, to be a good leader, to make intelligent decisions and critically think and all that kind of stuff. So it was just part of the process. And then by the end, they just tell you that you're great so often that eventually you just start to believe it, which I think is really awesome. So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it absolutely. I love the way you talked about the whole process of it being like a growth process. And who doesn't love having somebody just tell them that they're great every day? Right. It's
pretty nice.
I think it's great. I think the way that you talked about your confidence as like a growth process is super awesome. And it's always cool to hear people that either they feel like they were kind of just born confident and they always felt like a natural leader, or somebody who was kind of put in a situation and they just had to show up as a leader. And so I like seeing how that also evolves into people's personal lives. Like, have you allowed that to lead you other places in the world? Like, what did you do after you were done, like in the military?
Right after I got out of the military, I had a couple months off. where I was kind of looking at what I wanted to do in the future. I'd saved up some money. I was starting to look at like graduate programs and things like that since I had the GI Bill. And one of my friends reached out to me, said that he was interested in going abroad. At that point, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's pull the trigger. And that kind of decision to just drop everything and move abroad is something I would never do before I joined the military. So back in college and in high school, I just didn't have the confidence in myself to pull something like that off. Right? I mean, just the thought of going somewhere where I don't know the language, I don't know the culture, would just it'd be overwhelming. It'd be terrifying.
Yeah, it sounds terrifying.
Yeah, so just being able to do that was definitely influenced by the confidence that I gained in the military. And then even after that, like going to school in California instead of going back to Texas, that's something else that I really was kind of nervous about even after all of this. Even after all of the things that I'd done, I was still nervous about it, but I knew that I could handle it, which again is kind of a side product of kind of gaining that confidence earlier on. So I think everything that I've done in my life has been due to my own self-reliance and feeling like I can pull it off because I've been in difficult situations. I handled them well. So why can't I do that in the future? You know?
That's definitely a special or unique mentality, I think, to have, because I can definitely think of times when I've been in a situation and I'm just like, nope, can't do it, can't handle it, like hands up, can't deal. But then there are times when you do just find that like grit, I would say, within you to just kind of do it. And I think, like you mentioned, the like terrifying feeling of being somewhere that you don't know people, you don't know the language, you don't maybe know the culture, and like how were you able to kind of have confidence in the face of culture shock when you did go abroad? Because where'd you wind up going actually?
So David and I, my friend that I went abroad with, we originally planned on staying in Prague and teaching there for a while. We stayed there for 2 months in the Czech Republic, and then on a whim, we decided to go to Vietnam. We had some friends who were flying out there to go teach, and we decided we really wanted a challenge. So our plan was to stay in Prague for 6 months. Over the course of 2 days, we decided, you know what, we'll do something else. You know, we emailed companies in Vietnam. We said, hey, we're English teachers. Do you have anything for us? And a company got back to us, you know, later that day and said, we can set up an interview anytime you want. So we landed on a Thursday. We had an interview Friday, and we had a job by Monday.
Wow.
It's that kind of thing, again, I'd never be able to pull off. And then landing in Vietnam, and even in Europe, it was kind of culture shock. I'd never been anywhere outside of the U.S. before that. And things were kind of different, but again, kind of the same, you know, a lot of the same vibes. But landing in Vietnam, just the taxi ride to our hotel was probably one of the most stressful and exhilarating times of my entire life. It was absolutely insane. And it's just something that I was not prepared for, but we just embraced it. And having a really good friend there was definitely something that helped. Because while I can have all the confidence in the world, but David was there to kind of reassure me and build me up and say, you know what, like, let's go and have a good time. And I did the same with him. And I mean, an hour after we landed and got to our hotel, I mean, we were out walking the streets. You know, didn't know where we were. We were walking up to food stands like, this looks good, let's give it a shot. Kind of playing Russian roulette with our stomachs. But it was, I mean, it was great. But again, I wouldn't be able to pull that kind of stuff off if I didn't have, or if I didn't reassure myself that I could handle anything. So, yeah, it's just kind of all in out, kind of, it all pours out of that, I guess.
Yeah, you were, right now when you were talking, you said something about just embracing it. And I guess my question would be like, how important do you think being able to just embrace the situation is in terms of being able to also have confidence in that given situation?
A lot of times you don't have a choice, right? Like even now if I'm walking into a party, a lot of times I feel uncomfortable. Like I don't know any of these people. Like I don't know if we have a lot of shared interests or anything like that. But I just try to embrace it. I'm like, look, you're stuck here. I mean, you got to stay at least an hour. So you know what? Go grab yourself a drink, sit down, find a group of people who are talking, and just kind of sit there, observe, and then take part in it. The thing is that you have to embrace the situation that you're in because you're stuck there anyway, right? Mm-hmm. And even if it's a situation like you're stuck sitting in your room, getting stuck in a rut where, you know, you're not doing anything to kind of better yourself or to feel good about yourself, or you're just feeling really down, that's not going to change, right? You have to embrace the challenges and the mindset that you have to make moves in order to kind of be a better version of yourself. So just embrace the bad parts. There's going to be bad parts. There's going to be times when you struggle, times when you want to quit. Embrace that, right? There's this saying in the Marine Corps that if it ain't raining, we're not training, which basically means if it's raining outside, you're going outside. And it's going to be awful, and you're going to be miserable, and you're going to complain the entire time. But when you're landing on a beach and people are shooting at you, training in the rain is going to make you better. Right? So the people who train the hardest are the people who and like overcome the most adversity. Those are the people who come in clutch when you really need it. Same thing with walking into a party, right? Like, just embrace it. It's going to be bad. It's not something that I'm naturally good at. Just go like walking in and making friends with a ton of people, but I can do it. Mm-hmm. I can fake it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to fake it, and I'm going to get through it. You know,
you're going to face it.
Yeah,
not
exactly.
faking it. We're going to be genuine. But yeah, everything you just said there had a lot of knowledge to be soaked in, and I loved it. Just talking about that whole training mentality, and you know, in Exercise Confidence, we talk about how kind of our physical well-being plays also into our mental well-being and back and forth as well. So I noticed you're wearing a Houston half marathon shirt.
Right.
All right. So let's talk about that training process. I mean, I know we talked about how grueling it was physically as a Marine, but then also in civilian life, again, there's still ways in which, you know, you got to keep yourself physically active and mentally healthy. So let's talk about your marathon.
Okay. Well, actually, this is probably not what you want to hear. For my half marathon, I actually didn't really train for it, which my mother was very mad. So I ran it with my entire family.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
About, I think it was 3 years ago.
Okay.
At the time, about 3 years ago, I wasn't really working out a lot, but I think there is a lesson to be gleaned from this, in that even though I didn't train for the half marathon specifically, my body was I've always kind of been athletic. I spent a lot of time at skate parks as a kid. And obviously in the Marines, I had to get in really good shape and things like that. But when I was doing the marathon, the reason I was able to do that was because I had already laid the foundation earlier on. And I think there's probably, you know, better examples of that. But as a kid, I was always active. I was always out running around. In high school, I started working at Taco Bell, so my health just went down the tubes because I love Taco Bell.
I don't blame you.
So I kind of got out of shape there for a little bit, but then again in the Marine Corps, I got in shape again. So I laid this foundation of physical fitness that kind of carries on, because a lot of people look at physical fitness as like, you want a really quick turnaround. You want to like be able to walk into the gym and just like crush all the weights immediately. But it's all about laying a foundation. And that's kind of what I did in the Marines. And then whenever I do go and work out, it does take a little bit to get used to it. But after I get through the first maybe week, after that I start seeing dramatic improvement. And it's just because I laid that foundation. I worked hard in the past, and now it's paying dividends in the future. So with the half marathon, I actually ran it with my sister. We paired up and we did a walk run.
Okay.
So we walked for, I think, 2 minutes and ran for 2 minutes the whole way through.
Oh, wow.
And it was crazy. I was in so much pain by the end. It was really rough. I should have trained. I definitely should have trained. But I was able to kind of just walk in and handle it because of the foundations and the work that I had done earlier on. I want to run it again, and I want to do better. I actually want to run a full marathon, and that's kind of my next thing that I will have to train for. And that's another thing. I hate running. There's nothing I hate more than running.
So why run marathons? Just to say you did, or?
To say you did, right? It's all about the experience. Yeah. You know? The thing is, and that's another part of the mentality that I got in the Marine Corps, is it's worth it if you get a good story out of it, which can be good and can be very bad.
Yeah.
But I've kind of embraced that, especially when I was teaching abroad. Even now, like in Auckland, New Zealand, I went bungee jumping off the Auckland Bridge. Because it's worth the story, right?
That's definitely worth the story.
Yeah, like running a marathon, it's worth the story, right? It's gonna hurt, it's gonna be awful, but the thing is, the pain lasts for 3-4 days afterwards, and then you got the story for the rest of your life. I can say that I ran a half marathon. It was awful. It was absolutely awful, but the fact that I got through it is all that really matters. And that's what so many of my decisions come down to. Moving to Vietnam on a whim, it's worth the story. You know, like getting lost in Bangkok, Thailand, and like passing out in a public park, it's worth the story. It's not a good decision, but you get the story out of it, and that's the path I'm following now. We'll see how long I can keep it up.
See how long the stories are worth it.
Yeah, exactly. So the marathon is next on the list, and I'll keep plugging away.
That's good. That's good. That notion of laying a foundation physically for your fitness, I also think you could probably apply that to your confidence.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right?
Absolutely. And this is one of the things I was trying to figure out, because I have a lot of friends. We actually have a mutual friend in the chess club who kind of struggles with confidence. And I kind of find myself talking about this all the time with him, is that if you want to be confident, if you want to be self-assured and self-reliant and things like that, you have to do things to fill your stoke tank. Now I'm stealing stoke tank, the idea from my girlfriend. But it's about doing things that you find important, that you think are like good and interesting and things like that. That's one of the reasons the Marine Corps was so important for me, was because I had so much respect for people who had served in the military, whether it's, George Washington all the way up to like Eisenhower. These people that go and sacrifice so much and are willing to put their bodies on the line for what they believe in, that's something I really respected. So when I joined that, I became one of those people. So because I kind of admired what they did, I could then admire myself, which is interesting. So one of my friends, the friend that we were talking about, he, really admires, intelligence. He admires confidence, which, it's hard to get if you don't have other things, but he admires people who like go out there and work hard and things like that. So if he can find ways to do that in his own life, then he can start to admire his own traits, because the traits that he admires in others, he needs to incorporate into his own life. And that's something that I'm doing even now, new year, new me, 2020, baby. There's a lot of people that I look up to and I'm like, these are amazing people, whether it's, my friends, whether it's some of my professors, or even, like famous people. I look at, why do I admire this person? What is it about this person that I want to mirror, or that I want to have? And then I identify what those are, and I say, okay, well, here's a list of things. This guy, he's super ripped. I really, really admire that. I wish I was ripped. Well, how do you get ripped? Well, you got to stop eating Taco Bell. I can tell you that much.
The worst.
Right? You got to start working out. You have to, eat right, and just kind of live with like better living habits and things like that. So those are the things I'm incorporating in order to reach my goals. So I look at the people I admire, I look at the traits that they have, and then I incorporate those into my own life. And that's one of the things, I think that's probably the reason why I'm as confident as I am now, because I've taken that blueprint and I've applied it to my life, and it's really paid dividends.
I've never heard that notion of seeing qualities you admire in somebody else and trying to find a way to create them for yourself so that you can also emulate them and have those qualities. And I'm obsessed with it now. I love that idea. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
Because I love it. So you mentioned chess club.
Right.
I would love to talk about chess, so I will give my listeners another bit of insight to me. I was part of the chess club at Cal State Long Beach. Sadly, the only girl in the group, but I made wonderful friendships. I loved learning more about the game, and it really felt like it boosted my confidence the more I learned about the game, and it's kind of the way you learn about yourself through it. And so how old were you when you started playing chess and all that good stuff?
I was probably 15 when I started playing. Okay. I didn't get decent until much later, but I started playing at 15. Started getting kind of good at maybe 22, 23.
And you're like an avid player now still, right?
Yeah, I play all the time. I love chess.
What's your chess.com rating?
My chess.com rating. It's interesting that you ask that. My chess.com rating right now, my bullet rating, which is 1 minute games, my 1 minute game rating is about 2,100.
Okay.
Which is, it's pretty good.
It's impressive.
It's not, I'm not a grandmaster or anything, but it's pretty good for a novice. And then my blitz rating is about 2,000.
Wow.
So as far as the chess club goes, the Cal State Chess Club, I'm the highest rated player, which is really all that matters. As long as I can beat my friends, I'm fine.
Got to throw it out there.
Right. But as far as like actual good players, I'm not good. But I love the game. And it's funny that it kind of, you mentioned that it boosted your confidence because it definitely boosted mine.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so interesting. Your style of play mirrors your personality in so many ways.
That makes sense.
It does. So like me, I play very aggressive and very recklessly, which if listening to this podcast, I'm not sure if you can tell, I'm a little bit reckless, right? Like
maybe just a hair.
A little bit. Like I'll do anything for the story. Same thing on the chessboard,
I love it.
I'm willing to sacrifice whatever I need to do in order to get that checkmate. And if I lose, at least I lost with style.
Right.
Right. So chess is so good in that it builds confidence. And it goes back to those foundations that we talked about, with opening theory, with tactics and strategy, all this different stuff. You're not going to become a grandmaster out of the gate. You got to build, right? You have to learn the basics, and then you build on that and build on that and build on that until you find your own style and the way that you like to play the game. And then you incorporate that into your play, and you get better and better, especially when you're confident in your moves and your style.
Yeah, that's very true. It does take a lot of practice, and it does take a good bit of laying the foundation again, if you will. But anybody listening out there that if you don't play chess, I highly recommend looking into it. Chess.com is a great, easy way to get started, and it is just such a tried and true game of like tactics and just learning. And I get to there's infinite ways that a game can play out, so it's never the same game twice.
Oh yeah,
it's always challenging. It's a great way to grow. And if you're looking for a support group out there and you don't really have one, like we've mentioned on a lot of the podcasts, that finding that group, and if you're willing to dive into something new, I guarantee you can find a local chess club that would be more than happy to take you in, more than happy to teach you the game, and you will learn a lot, not just about how to play chess, but a lot about yourself too.
Right. I'm a part of a couple different chess clubs, and one of the great things about it is I made a friend in Vietnam, and we ended up, her English wasn't great, and my Vietnamese is atrocious, but we could sit down and play a game of chess, and it was like we're having a conversation.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's like a universal language.
Yeah. So, and it's, it's one of the most popular games in the world.
Yep.
And if you're looking for a way, this is much better than a Pez dispenser. Come in and say that you play chess, and somebody somewhere, like in the places that you're going, they play chess in some capacity, right? Everybody knows how the pieces move. Now, how good they are, that doesn't really matter. It's all about having that opening and the ability to kind of walk in and say, hey, you want to play some chess? And then you don't have to talk to them. And that's one of the big things that I found is that, like, as a conversationalist, I'm not the best, but if we sit behind, a chessboard, we can sit there for hours and have a great time. So it's just kind of a shortcut for, having an opportunity to meet new people without necessarily having a ton of pressure on you to perform.
Yeah, it's something that I think is so simple that you wouldn't even think of it in that regard. It's going up and being like, hey, anybody play chess? And you know what? Even if somebody doesn't play chess, maybe they want to learn.
Right.
And there, boom, another way to just meet people and kind of branch out in that way. And like we mentioned, the chess club we were a part of together was at Cal State Long Beach. And like, how did you wind up at Cal State Long Beach? How did you get to California? Like, how did all that kind of happen for you after? Because California happened after abroad, right?
Right.
Okay.
So this is actually kind of an embarrassing story, but the reason I ended up at California State University, Long Beach, is because they had one of the best college paintball programs in the nation. So I've loved paintball forever. I follow pro paintball. There's maybe 12 people in the nation that follow pro paintball. I'm one of them. Okay. I love it. And Cal State Long Beach actually had a really, really good program, as did Texas A&M. I used to play at Texas A&M. I was part of the club. I would go in occasionally, but I never played competitively. But when I went to grad school, I was like, you know what? I want to play competitively. So I only applied to 2 schools, and I got into both of them, SDSU and then Cal State Long Beach. And I chose to go to Cal State Long Beach based on their paintball program. Now, don't tell my advisors or my professors or anyone that, but that's why I came. And so that's what brought me to Cal State Long Beach specifically. California, I was stationed out here at Camp Pendleton in the Marine Corps, and I loved it. You know, we'd go out to San Diego on the weekends, go to Oceanside and surf. We go hiking, a lot of different stuff. So California just had a lot of the things that I wanted, you know, as a young man, to go out and, you know, have some adventures and things like that. So that's why I decided to come out here. And with the GI Bill, I get in-state tuition wherever I go.
Oh, wow.
It was just kind of, it wasn't a question of finances as much as where do I want to be. And Southern California, I mean, it's hard to get better. So that's why I chose to come down here.
I will agree with that. I've been a few places in the world that are nice, but man, nothing beats SoCal still.
Right, it's pretty nice.
And so surfing, is that something that you learned when you were out here, or had you learned that down in Texas? Or
so Texas, we have a beach. It's called Galveston. Well, the island's called Galveston. It's awful. It's just like it's just basically a gulf that the Mississippi drains out into. So it's just all muddy water and stuff. So wasn't surfing out there. And then I came to California, and on a couple weekends, me and my Marine Corps friends, we went surfing, and we are not good. So we basically just went over there and swallowed salt water for 8 hours. Ooh. And then I started in earnest surfing a couple years ago. I went on Craigslist and I bought a board, and I just paddled out and hoped for the best. And I'm still not good. I'm not good by any means, but it's something that I really love, and I just love that. When you paddle out, you know, you don't have any electronics on you. You have nothing. You're just sitting out there waiting for the waves to come in. So it's a really good opportunity to just kind of meditate almost and just spend some time just away from all the distractions. Yeah, so I love surfing. I wish I was good at it. One of these days I will be. One of these days. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
You'll be Kelly Slater with your little look you got going on.
Yeah, right. Bald people, I tell you what.
No, but being able to have something that allows you to, like you said, detach from like electronics and everything else, and you have that moment to kind of meditate, I think. Do you feel that helps with your personal like growth journey or anything? Do you feel like that's something that gives you some sort of like peace to come back to when things get chaotic? Or
I think so. Now there's just so many distractions, and we hear it all the time, right? Like, oh, everyone's always on their phone and stuff like that. I'm always on my phone.
Well, me too, guilty.
Yeah, like I mean, I can sit down and watch Netflix for 8 hours a day and be perfectly content, kind of going back to the whole contentment thing. And it's very rare. Like I'm not addicted to my phone, but I get anxious if it's not around. So maybe I am. I don't know. But like if it's in the other room or something, I'm like, I hope no one's texting me. Of course no one is, but you know, there's a possibility. So having the opportunity to go out and paddle out and not have to deal with just the anxiety of, is anybody calling me? Am I missing anything? Or just like being out there and not watching TV. You know, I can spend 3 hours out surfing, or I can spend it here watching a movie. When I'm out surfing, I'm, you know, getting that B12 from the sun or whatever it is. I'm getting a workout, you know, like it's crazy. And I feel like I'm doing something cool. Right. And that's the thing. And again, it goes back to who do you admire, and how do you kind of incorporate that into your own life? I've always thought surfers were the coolest people. You know, they're super laid back. They travel the world. They commune with nature, as lame as it sounds. You know, you're out there, you're waiting for the waves to come in.
I don't think that's lame, but I'm also a nature girl myself. Like, the ocean cleanses me. Like, I need to go when I get too overwhelmed. So
exactly. So,
I get it.
Yeah, so it's just like, I've always thought surfers were really, really cool. And growing up in the extreme sports scene in Houston, I never really had that opportunity until I came out here. So going out and surfing, if you see me in the water, I look like an idiot because I don't know what I'm doing. But the walk to and from the beach could be the most confident I feel ever, right? Because you turn heads, right? All the girls on the beach are like, ooh, a surfer. And I'm like, yeah, don't look at me in the water, but right now, check it out, you know? So it's just kind of, again, the people that I admire, they do these things. And I'm like, I want to do those too. None of my friends surf. I'm the only surfer. I have no one to show me what to do. I'm out there figuring it out as I go. And it's hard. And a lot of times, like I get hit in the back of the head with a surfboard, but it's worth it, because I enjoy it. It's a break away from kind of the monotony of just, I'm on my phone, I'm in class, I'm at work, all these kinds of things. It's just a complete break from that. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I can't really get anywhere else.
A lot of the things that you've mentioned require a level of learning, and I would say also a level of discipline.
Mm-hmm.
So, first off, would you say you're a disciplined person?
Depends on the context.
Depends on the context?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're able to be disciplined when it's something that intrigues you enough or you want enough to achieve it or to have that attribute or what have you?
Right. It really depends.
Okay.
I got examples of both. So, of when I wasn't disciplined, I think food is probably a good example. I love food, specifically fast food. I love fast food. I grew up eating Jack in the Box, Whataburger, Chick-fil-A, Taco Bell. It's so good. It's everything that's good in this world is in the box of a Chick-fil-A meal.
Preach. I agree.
So I love it. And last year, in 2018 rather, I kind of got into bad habits where I wasn't cooking a lot. Mm-hmm. And I was eating a lot of fast food. So by the end of 2018, I was eating Little Caesars pizzas, which I love, like maybe 4 times a week. And what I would do is I would eat the pizza at night, and I'd save the crust for breakfast, and I'd eat the crust for breakfast, go all day without eating, and then eat another Little Caesars at night.
Oh my God.
So, living my best life.
Absolutely.
Extremely unhealthy, not what your body needs. So that's an example of me not being disciplined. And I would tell myself, okay, I'll only have it on a weekend. I'll only have Little Caesars on the weekend. Mm-hmm. The problem is, if there was a week where we had maybe Friday off, like I had Friday off work or something like that, I'd be like, Thursday night, I'd be like, well, it's the weekend, right? And then Monday, I wouldn't go into work until 2, so I'd be like, Monday morning, I'd be like, it's still the weekend. So those kinds of things I wasn't disciplined and kind of following through on that. However, when 2019 hit, I was like, you know what? New year, new me, let's hit it. So no fast food for the year. And I just chose it on a whim. I was like, no fast food for the year, that's fine. And then I went through the entire year without having fast food once. When I was eating it 5-6 times a week, the year before, I just go cold turkey out of nowhere because it's something that I wanted to achieve. So I can be disciplined if it's something that I really care about, or if it's kind of a challenge. I think that's more so. If it's a challenge, I'll do it.
Okay.
But if I'm kind of doing it for myself, I really have to put it in a way that's going to make it achievable and difficult, because that's really what I want to achieve something.
Is that why you chose to go to grad school? Because it was like another challenge, or?
I think so. Yeah. And also I just love history. I'm very passionate about it. I can't think of anything better than teaching history at a university for the rest of my life. It's something that I'm so passionate about, and I love sharing it with other people. And the grad school program that I'm in now is actually really, really tough. A lot of students end up dropping or, have a lot of trouble with it. And that's one of the reasons I love it, is because it's rough. And my entire cohort at school, we all have horror stories from like when we just broke down, we just felt like we couldn't do it. And I love that. I love that so much. So yeah, I would say discipline, it has to be a challenge, but yeah, I like it.
So then you've mentioned New Year, New Me twice.
Oh yeah.
Do you always do a resolution? Do you always pick something to challenge yourself with every year?
I start with like 15 every single year, and then they whittle down,
Sure.
Of course there are ones that you always give up on, but then there are some that you keep. So like for 2020, I think this is a good example. I only did 4.
Okay.
And they're not like completely, this year I'm changing it up. Usually I have like 15 and then I'll end up keeping like 2 of them. Mm-hmm. This year I have fewer and I'm not being super rigid with them. So my 4 are to read every day. So just spend a little bit of time reading. To work out every day, which has already become a challenge, but I'm doing it, right? So like if I don't have an opportunity to hit the gym or to go for a run, I'll just do yoga for 20-30 minutes at night just before I go to bed. And nothing crazy, but giving myself some room, not having anything super hard, but to work out every day. And then to write every day, because I love to write. I have a natural talent as a writer. I'm not good at music. I'm not good looking, but I can write. So I take the gifts that I was given, and the kind of my complacency has kind of hindered me from writing a lot. And I feel like it's something that I could do. I want to be published. I want to write fiction. So to write every day. So to write at least 300 words, which is one novel page. So to just write that every day. And then my last one is to eat healthy, which I've only done 2 or 3 days this year so far.
Well, we're only 9 in, so...
Right. So the first week of 2020 was a complete mess. But the reason that I'm kind of making them more flexible is because I want to actually continue on with them throughout the entire year. Whereas if it's like work out every day, and if I miss a day, well, I messed up. I didn't work out every single day, so there's no reason to keep doing it.
Yeah.
So this way I'm trying to make it achievable and obtainable. So that's why I'm kind of changing it up this year, and I'm really limiting my things. But I think New Year, New Me is so much fun. I love New Year, New Me. All my friends hate listening to me talk about it, but I love it.
We don't hate you for it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I like the way that you talk about giving yourself a little bit of that like leniency when it comes towards the goal and the resolutions. I know like what is it? It's called like SMART goals.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Right. I can't think of what the S is.
I don't know what that one is.
I know M is like measurable,
right.
A is attainable, or something like that. R is realistic, and then T is time sensitive. So
right.
your time sensitive is obviously the year. You're making it realistic by the ways in which you're kind of keeping them for yourself. Like your workout, it's not like, oh, I have to go run 5 miles every day. It's like I can do some yoga at the end of the night. That is still a beautiful way to get some exercise in for yourself, and it
right.
exercises your mind too, and it's a lot of different things. So yeah, that's something that I would like to kind of be put out there more in the world. Like you can set a goal for yourself, and it doesn't have to be something that is so lofty or rigid or unrealistic. Like those small goals actually build up and help you achieve bigger things.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of my jobs, I actually work at Long Beach Community College, or City College rather. And one of the things that we teach is study skills. And so many students come in and they need help with study skills, and they're like, and I ask, how much time would it take for you to make the grades that you want? How many hours would you have to study a week? And they're like, 6. And I'm like, okay, that's good. How much do you study now? And they're like, 30 minutes a week. I'm like, okay, well, there's kind of a discrepancy there that we need to figure out, right? And I'm like, how would we make this achievable? And so many of them are like, well, just study an hour a week, and I'll start next week. There's no way someone who doesn't study much at all is going to immediately go to an hour a week. It's just not going to happen, right? So we kind of implement a 5-minute plan, which means you take 5 minutes to sit down and start. And you do that every day. And then however long you work, that's just a bonus on top of the 5. And you start at 5, the next week you go to 10, the next week you go to 15. The same way that running a marathon's impossible unless you train for it, and like incrementally,
right?
Supposedly. The same idea with studying, the same idea with working out, the same idea with anything. You start with something that's manageable. You know, if you've never been to the gym before, going an hour a day is not the way to start.
Yeah.
You know, you start going in maybe 15 minutes of very light weightlifting, and then maybe a little bit of cardio, and you just build off of that. Because so many times, and this is what I fell victim to earlier with the whole New Year, New Me thing, is I have these huge goals that if I was to complete all of those every single day like I wanted, I would be miserable. Right? So you have to find a way to make it bearable while also getting better and better. And again, it goes to laying foundations and just building that confidence, you know? Start off small, build a little bit of confidence, feel yourself a little bit, you know, start feeling good, and then you move on and you get better and better.
Yeah, it definitely is not an overnight thing. It does take time, and it takes the whole notion that I believe is exercise confidence, is that confidence is, it's like a muscle.
Right.
We've got to exercise it, but we've also got to stretch it. So like you talked about lifting weights, running, yoga, all those sentiments can be applied in, you know, ways that work for building your confidence too. So you just find something small that you could do that maybe it feels like it's a heavy lift to build your confidence. Maybe it feels like you're sprinting through it. Maybe it feels like you're really stretching it and you're uncomfortable, but I really truly believe that those are the things that help us actually build up that confidence and make it so it gets stronger and stronger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just all comes back to, what do you want to be? Who do you kind of emulate? Who do you look up to? Who do you respect?
Mm-hmm.
What are they doing? And how can you take that and kind of put it into your, implement it into your own life? And, if they lift a lot of weights, well, go lift little weights and then get to big weights, and then you'll be the same.
Yeah. And if anybody listening wants to be anything like Rick, we will link his Instagram below and any of his contact info if you have any questions or want to reach out to him. Rick, as we're wrapping up here, if you had one piece of advice for somebody to be able to exercise confidence daily, what would your advice be? Definitely
going back to finding the traits of the people that you admire and implementing those into your own life. And then also embrace the suck. Life's going to be rough. And again, that comes straight from the Marine Corps, but life is not meant to be easy, and you got to work for it. So when it gets really bad, mm-hmm. that's when you really got to turn it on. I had to hit rock bottom before I decided to, make the jump and to go make things happen.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you need that adversity, you need the struggle in order to really achieve your full potential. Mm-hmm. So I would say, when it gets bad, good. It's supposed to be, right? Life's not supposed to be easy. So take that, embrace it, find the people who triumph in those situations, look at what they're doing, and then implement that in your own life in any way that you possibly can.
Yeah, that's perfect. That is valuable for anybody to hear. And we've mentioned before, like in this podcast today, guys, that it's okay to hit rock bottom. We all do. And anybody who tells you that they don't is lying to you. So, like we're saying, it's okay to hit rock bottom, but don't stay there. You can find a support system. You can find the people that you admire, and you can find a way to pull yourself out of that, or you could find people to help you pull yourself out of that.
Amen. Use it. Embrace it.
Use it.
It'll make you stronger.
It will. Well, thank you, Rick, so much for being on our episode today. You shared so much valuable insight, and I really think that this episode is just going to be beneficial for anybody that hears it. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
There it is, episode 3 of Exercise Confidence. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you were able to get something out of the many anecdotes that Rick gave us today. I really did love the notion of embracing the situation. A lot of confidence can be found when you don't expect to find confidence in a situation. Also, the thought of laying a foundation. Sometimes we think that confidence is just going to spring up in an instant, but it really does take repetitive practice, and that is why we have this notion to exercise confidence, to build that muscle, and to really grow it for yourself. I hope you'll tune in for episode 4 of Exercise Confidence. Our guest has a great story that is definitely worth hearing and will be sure to inspire you to exercise confidence in yourself and to bet on yourself. So I do want to thank you again for tuning in. I hope I have earned the privilege of your time, and I hope that you find a way to exercise confidence every day. Signing off from episode 3 today, Jaren Asari. We'll see you next time.